Welcome to another episode of Philosophy of Chillin. I'm your host, Don't Let the Connect, and today's topic is going to be a little interesting. I've been fighting with the title a little bit. I don't know if the discussion will be primarily based around, it won't necessarily be primarily based around setbacks, but setbacks are involved with that. So with that being said, today's topic is going to be looking at how one can experience, and how one can choose to get through the phases of life or the decisions that have to be made involving risk. So we're going to look through risk today and just go through the instances that are deemed to be true and how you can work through. So, where did this topic come from? Well, everything involves risk. Even if you have the purest intentions, depending on the level of access that you have, there's different levels and different decisions that you have to scale through in life to kind of understand what you will and will not do as a person, especially in trying to uphold the standards that you deem to be true for you. What I mean by that is, if you are on the path of whether it be traditional, creative, underground, honestly, this really pertains to anything. But if you are choosing, if you are choosing to and are willing to continue living, breathing, waking up in the morning to see what happens next within your immediate family or community, even including yourself, well, the idea that you wake up with in the morning and the decisions that you have to make throughout the day, each of those experiences are like stepping stones to show you what you do in pressurized case scenarios. And in order to understand who you are, there is a level of risk that exists in the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis. An example, the schools that you choose to go to. You can have suggestions from other people. You can have where you would actually see yourself to be. And depending on what is surrounding that situation, highly depends on your mental capacity to understand not just yourself, but how other people have the perspective of the environment that you are choosing to or not to involve yourself with. So it could be anything. It could be as small as deciding what clothes you're going to wear. If that pisses somebody off someday or one day, then that could be a risk within itself, because you are balancing the choices between expressing yourself and satisfying somebody else. And in trying to balance those two aspects, especially if you're leaning towards being happy and joyous and satisfying yourself, then there's going to be an aspect when you have to think about the things that you are willing to do and not do publicly. So I wanted to discuss it and go through it because I'm experiencing it too. The decisions that I make, some people may have a perspective of what they look like on the outside looking in, but from the person actually making the decisions, I understand what other people are digesting from a completely different perspective. So, meaning there's always that continued duality in every situation. And it's so important to understand yourself in the different varieties that you come in, because you being happy is different from when you're frustrated, or your personality shows up differently when you're exhausted, XYZ ABC. And I say all that to say, when you are dealing with risk that you are currently trying to evaluate or cannot even foresee, the real key is trying to prepare yourself as best as possible with the information and resources that you have available presently. And with those resources and that mentality in that present basis, that kind of sets up your trajectory for what you will experience moving forward. And it's frustrating because you can think something through, and I'm not just saying you, but even this is coming from my own personal perspective. I think a lot of things through on a very detailed level, and I create avenues of solutions depending on the variations of what could happen in a situation. And I try to do that to kind of balance the left and right brains of my personality, because my left brain it understands the black and white logistics. This is what needs to happen at this time, at this day, at this location, XYZ, ABC, so that we can uphold our commitment or the commitment that I made to either somebody else, another entity, or just to even me. So with that being said, there's some sort of mystery behind whether all of what you are doing, whether all of how you are thinking, are really valid, especially in the moment when everything is not necessarily clear to you. And I know even for myself, when it comes to surface level details, I expect to know what is going to happen at this time, this place, XYZ, ABC, because humans have created a system over the millennia that we've been here on this earth to where it's predictable. Even if the situation has its different variety points and, has the different diverse aspects of whether it be the community that's involved with it, the person, XYZ, ABC. All of those things exist. So how do you balance out that systematic influence with what you actually feel or your gut is telling you that you need to do? And that kind of in-between gray space is what I'm trying to talk about today, because it's difficult. It can be overwhelming. It can be frustrating, especially when mentally you have the vision and the plan, but the businesses or the systematic structures that you're surrounded with, they're not caught up to the same idea, XYZ. So with that in place, and with that being the situation at hand, the question becomes, how do you balance your mental fortitude, with your and your physical emotions, with the actions that you actually take. And when you're looking at moving through risk, that's why I said in the beginning, anything could really be deemed a risk, but it depends on you and your story, you and your journey, because a risk could involve investing in a camera when you still have, other aspects of your situation going on around you at hand. It can be anything. So how do you get through the frustration that is caused when you feel as if you're doing the right thing, but your present situation does not reflect the vision that you thought it would be in that entity or in that season of your life? So, it's kind of hard to get through it because you have to acknowledge what you're actually experiencing versus the vision that you had initially before you even got to that moment. And for me, it's especially conflicting because there are people that literally build their lives, their livelihood, their credibility, their successes, their triumphs around the traditional, whether it be education, experiences, organizations that we all have been able to see evolve over these generations. And let's just be honest, we're humans. So even though that there's a representation, there's an example, that doesn't mean that example is the one avenue to be true. Does this make sense to you? I hope so. But I say all this to say the risk starts to become real when the example that you have and what you've been told and versus what you feel is right for you to do starts to become misaligned in whether it be ideology, practices, beliefs, what have you. So how do you continue to show up and be present even amongst other aspects that aren't necessarily caught up to what you are doing? Does this make sense? So yes, the risk is in the misalignment between what is already existing versus what you want to create for yourself or for somebody else. So in doing that, whether it be a business idea or what have you, there are different stages that you kind of have to work through in order to really confidently see it through. And that's the part and the frustration that I want to get into, because what is the experience like for you? Like, what do you go through, or what do you identify to be a trigger for you that makes you feel as if you are about to make a risky decision for yourself? Or what is it that makes you rethink the decisions that you have made previously in a confident mindset, but now in your present situation, you feel a little iffy, or, did I make the right decision? You know what I'm saying? And I've definitely been there. I'm currently in it right now, which is, I guess, why I'm feeling pulled to talk about this conversation. Because at least for me, it actualizes itself differently when I'm evaluating the levels of risk that I've seen within my life. I can put it to so many different things, but the main cycle that I'm picking up on and what I'm understanding to be true is that I have to remember what I'm putting into the decisions that I'm making. And to break that down, I guess it would kind of look like just an example situation, right? I have a studio space that I acquired and have in my name because of the connections of people that I meet on a daily basis that are either in creative or professional spaces. Now, my left side of the brain, before I even made this decision to acquire this property, my left side of the brain was like, nah, you crazy. You crazy as hell. You're young as fuck. And I don't know what the fuck you think you're doing, even trying to put your attention and energy and especially resources into this type of move so early. And I agreed with myself. I was like, no, you're right. I'm going to wait a whole year, stack up as much as I can. And then once I hit that point, I'll move the way I would like to in trying to make sure that I have a property that is welcoming to all around me. And that was the plan. I was like, yeah, like this is a great plan. I got the position that I need to get this done in. I have the creative investments that I'm putting my off time in as well. So, it's all moving. But in acknowledging that plan, then life happens. I get around creatives where the tempo of me working with them and working with myself, because I am also a professional creative, I just do a different aspect of the responsibilities involved within production and everything else. So as I'm growing, as I'm continuing to connect at the pace that I am, that pace started to go out, how do I say, not necessarily outpace the environment I was currently in, but it was just going at a different rate. And with those conflicting elements, there had to be a decision made prematurely than what I had planned early. Does that make sense? So a new thing has occurred in life, and now I have to pivot. With that pivot, I have two avenues that I have to consider: what's best for me and what's best for the people around me. Now, with that being said, what's best for me, shoot, my logistics brain go crazy, bro. Like, I break the numbers down. I keep track of everything. Like, I make sure I stay on top of it. And I like to do things, strategically ahead of time. So when it is time to do something, I'm not scrambling last minute. At least that's what I aim to do. So with that being said, now here's a situation where I have everything I need to make sure I'm good. Making sure I'm good is not a problem. However, if I have this vision of how I want to help people, how I want to grow creativity, inspire the idea that there can still be a level of accomplishment alongside your professional desires and everything else, as long as you also, give light to your creative side. If I am trying to do that and, bring that out of people, I also have to have a space that is accommodating to all varieties and all different communities. So I couldn't have a too small property, because if I'm a small person. I already know that. I don't care. This is how God made me, and I'm learning to love that body. You feel me? But at the same time, I got folks I know that are 6 feet tall, above, below, wider, smaller, you know what I'm saying? So I need a space that is able to make everybody feel comfortable. evaluating that, evaluating the things that I actually do. I'm always moving. So really, in getting a property, my property isn't necessarily just going to be a home. It's not meant to be that. It's meant to be a working space dynamically. So if you working late and you trying to make sure you're in a space that you feel comfortable, especially if you crash out accidentally, I want to be able to have that space where you can do that comfortably. So it started knocking down some of the aspects that with just me alone, I'd be perfectly fine with. I can't have a space that you have to, your car might potentially get booted if you stay too long. We can't have them problems. I'm not paying for the ticket, man. I'm not paying for the ticket. But seriously, like, these are aspects that maybe I'm not necessarily concerned about, but somebody visiting me, maybe. You know what I'm saying? So in trying to make a call on that decision, I had to weigh both of those options and kind of understand what I'm trying to do that kind of merges those priority levels. And I got the property that I have now. With that being said, getting a property like this at the age that I am doesn't make sense to most people. A lot of the decisions that I've made at my age don't make sense to most people. And a lot of comments that I've gotten back is, you're so young. Like, why didn't you just sit on it a little bit? You know what I'm saying? And those are aspects that in evaluating the risk levels, those feedback aspects are necessary because they help provide the reality that other people will hold you to while you're trying to create the vision that you know to be true. And you can't do anything but respect that, because those are the principles that have built not just this community, but globally. Everyone has their rules, their structures, their, requirements that, whether it was made to help everybody or not, they're still existing. So with that being said, how can you move and still have confidence in yourself when you take a risk, but you see it walking out and it's conflicting with the people or the ideology around you? Well, that's a part of it. And that's something you have to acknowledge too. And I have to do that on a regular, because when I'm putting down the numbers, I can get I can understand where people are coming from, because it makes sense. Because if I'm looking at the black and white, the number's not adding. But I want to challenge people to look at it from a different perspective, especially in consideration to the value of life and what we are really put here to do. And everyone is going to have their own agendas and the beliefs that are associated with them that they deem to be true. And that's cool. That's why every single person on this earth has a soul that has an identifying factor to it. That's the purpose of it. So in evaluating the risk, and when you're feeling the emotions of what the fuck am I supposed to do, it's literally revisiting the understanding that you have about the life you're experiencing. For me, it's like, okay, well, just speaking transparently, the whole world is technically against me. If we talking about black and white ideologies and XYZ and ABC, y'all don't like me. We still fighting over gender equality. We're still fighting over the topic of not necessarily appropriation. We talking about that too, but just getting some reparations for what we've experienced in history. I'm black too, you feel me? Like, you know what I'm saying? So there is still these different levels, LGBTQ plus community. Like, come on, man. There's so many different things that I could deem to be stacked against me. I just recognize them for what it is and I move through it. Because what I understand about life is the fact that the surface level details, if you really put the energy into it, all of it could be ratified, modified, and edified to where it's actually serving the people that are inquiring regarding the principle. It's just paper, it's just ink, but if you have the intention to do what you say you are going to do and showing up for somebody else in whatever capacity, whether it be professionally, creatively, personally, what have you, it's still the fact of, okay, well, how can you best assess what that person is going through, evaluate it to what is currently valued at being true, and then see if their intentions are actually genuine. Because there are some bad people out here, bro. I can't cap to you. And they will utilize, manipulate all of those aspects for themselves. And that's where the extra layer of protection comes from. But there are still those genuine people out there that are just trying to make sure that they're raising their own vision to the principle that is currently existing. And for some, they want to raise past it because of the things I mentioned previously. So with that being said, now you're looking at it from the two polar opposites of what you would deem to be your forms of action. So now it's about, how do you make that decision? Because a risk isn't necessarily considered a risk until after a commitment is already made, until after a decision is decided upon and acted upon. Because you can't say, oh, this was a risk just because you thought about it. That doesn't make it a risk. That just makes it a thought. The risk is when you actually put action behind it, and that action is contradictory to what somebody else would deem to be the best form of action or the best form of thought, XYZ, ABC, you know? So how do you think through it? How do you make sure that when you are putting thought to action or thought to paper and, you know, walking through what you would like to do, well, how are you making the final decision? Are you making it based on somebody else? Or are you making it based on yourself? Or are you listening to a gut feeling that may not necessarily, be in alignment with, be in alignment with where you want to go, but challenges you to grow? Does that make sense? And for me, that's a lot of what I deal with, what I want to do versus what my gut is telling me I need to do to actually fulfill the vision that I feel I've been given. And with that being said, a lot of the frustration and, you know, going back to the drawing board on if this was the right decision comes from that avenue of, I made this step because I know this will make me grow. This will push me past my comfort level and put me in a position to where I'm asking questions that I didn't think I would be experiencing at this point, which is bad but good. You know what I'm saying? It's a duality point, because am I upset that I got this studio space? Hell no. My vision is to literally utilize this space, break it down to the bare bones, make sure the actual foundation is solidified, and then rebuild it back up, design it and everything else so that it's a reflection of me and the energy that I wanted to put into this environment on a business and personal level. So I'm already seeing the long game. I'm already seeing the ways in which that I would like to grow and develop everything. But again, I have to deal with what is around me presently. So if I know my end vision and I know why I made the decision or how I made the decision or what I looked to confirm the decision that I was going to make, it literally separates me from what I'm experiencing in the present, if that makes sense. Because when I'm experiencing the frustration, when I'm experiencing the questions, the lack of confidence, I always go back to, well, what made me make this decision in the first place? What did that draw from? And how is that source or that root still present in this current situation? And whenever I ask those questions, it pulls me away from my left brain perspective of this is going wrong. This is not what we had planned for things to be. We don't know how to move forward, but yes, we do. We just have to utilize what is around us to figure out, not necessarily figure out, but do what we can to set us up for whenever the next move comes. And for me, that happens super haphazardly. I can't cap to you. Like, I never know where that next move is coming from, but I know that with what is being processed in my brain now of the resources around me, here's what I can do presently to at least put my mind at ease until the next thing. I mean, I don't know if this is making sense, but I hope it is, because this is my genuine thought process. And a lot of the times, what I found to be true in applying risk and, walking it through, it's so difficult trying to communicate it to other people. And this can be a testament of, those spiritual sayings or, whatever religion you believe in, they say it too, just in different variations. But essentially, I forgot what I was going to say. And it had to do with a saying that kind of gets you through mental thinking of the risk that you take in involving or looking to vocalize and communicate your ideas to other people, which is that you can't always say what your visions or what you intend to do to other people that aren't really placed in your life to hear it. And that's valid. That's valid. That's valid. But the thing is, you don't know who that person is until after the case, or after you actually, experience the red flags that show you this wasn't it. And it's conflicting because once you exchange that energy, it's kind of hard to shake it, because that, at least for me, the voices still circle around in my head, whether the person is with me or not, presently, what have you. It don't matter. My brain still thinks about it, and especially in a moment where you doubt yourself or your decisions. Those same voices can resurface. And that's why I mentioned knowing you and your personalities and the different varieties that you show up in and how that is presented or received by other people is so important, because once you go through that cycle of whether it be understanding that personality or experiencing it for the first time in the situation that you're gonna, draw back on how you can improve, hopefully, it's all evolving instantaneously. And sometimes it's a lot of pressure and it can feel like it's, compounding on top of you. And I know for me, it has always stood true for me to be able to pull myself out of it. For one, once I actually acknowledge the emotions that I'm going through and just let them cycle through. And then for two, understanding when that emotion is cycling through, when that emotion is getting to an extreme point where I don't need to go any deeper or any further, because if I go too deep or if I go too far into this mentality, I might lose myself. And you can't lose yourself, because you are the energy force behind how you are able to get through to the next scene where it may be more glorious than you might think. So with that being said, how do you make your decisions? And once you've made that decision, what does it look like for you when you're experiencing, whether it be the cycle of benefits or the cycle of detriments that come with the decision that you made? Because if you make a decision for yourself, there are going to be benefits, of course, because you decided to do it for you. So you see the good outcomes that can come from it. But what about the aspects that you didn't see coming at all, that don't necessarily align with the idea that you had walking into the decision in the first place? And again, I'm utilizing the studio that I have now as one example, but there are so many other options that this can be applied to, because it's about you. And the feeling of going through a risk or feeling the weight of what a risk can bring, and especially in feeling the pressure that it could bring to the people around you as you're experiencing and trying to grow and go through it. It's like, well, damn, how do I articulate the reason why I'm doing this to you when you can't see the same vision that I'm striving to? And honestly, it takes a lot of internal accountability, because communication, whether people understand it to be true or not, when I have to communicate and I'm feeling my emotions, it is the hardest thing for me to do. I can communicate about business like this. It don't matter if I'm drunk, you know what I'm saying, lit. It don't matter the situation, the environment. I can do it. Ain't no problem. But don't ask me about my personal stuff and I'm already feeling a sense of emotion that I'm still trying to digest for myself. Now I'm basically mute. I need to walk away from you, because I know myself when I'm angry. I know myself when I'm sad. I know myself when I'm upset or irritated or what have you. And if I know in that present moment that I'm not in the space to communicate something with you, even for myself, I'm trying to get to a point where I'm still able to articulate, hey, I know this may not make sense to you, but this is my truth. This is what I need to do in this present moment so that I can come back and be able to provide a response that has a balance of what you understand to be true too. Does that make sense? I hope so. Because this is really it. This is the process. And that's why I said earlier in a couple episodes, I honestly don't know which one, but when it comes to trying to understand you, it takes a level of patience that you won't understand until somebody else outside of you that is close to you steps on that trigger point. And now you have to figure out, okay, how do I move from here? And that's risk. Literally, because the action is the trigger point. And if you're around the right or wrong people, that feedback can make you deter from what you're supposed to do. Or you could be your own block. And shit, this has been true for me too, where you already have this mental construct of what a situation may be. But adversely, again, that perspective may be different from the outside looking in. And somebody may have, some good intentions, but they don't ever say nothing. And you're just sitting here in your brain going over everything that this must be why they X, Y, Z, A, B, C. And again, these are elements that can apply to any level of risk that you know to be true for you, because it doesn't have to be a person. It can be materialistic elements that you're evaluating and you're like, well, shoot, the benefits, the cons, I didn't see this coming, but I knew this was where I wanted to be. However, how do I deal with what's currently coming at me? So how do you settle yourself when you know you're spiraling? I'm asking all of these questions because I'm trying to not just articulate my own thought process, and I am also trying to understand what that process looks like for you. Because after that decision is made, it's literally just that space of walking out day to day the vision you're trying to make true against the standards of living that are upheld within your community too. So if you're going to choose and be willing to make those risky decisions, it's super important to understand how to get through the ups and downs of that aspect or decision or what have you. Because once the action is done, it's done. Like, you can backtrack all you want to. Like, if I wanted to, I could sell this place and, go through that process and then just do something for me. But it's not what this is about. What it's about is upholding the purpose or honoring the soul that was placed within you. Because that soul is the gut feeling that is driving you. And you can't replicate that anywhere else. You can't find your soul in somebody else or another thing or what have you. That's why dealing with the mental pressures that committing to what you deem to be a risk is so important, because it's guaranteed that if you are going to step outside of the boundaries and live or make a decision within the great aspects and duality that life has created for us over millennia, you're gonna have the moments where you're on a high, bro. You're like, yo, this is great. I made the best decision ever for me. I'm confident in this. And those lows where it's like, what the fuck? This is not what I signed up for. This is not what I was expecting to endure. And that's okay. I laugh at it every single day, bro. And it can be a coping mechanism. That is actually my coping mechanism, bro. I will laugh in somebody's face, man, just because I'm seeing the different aspects play out in reality. And I'll just be sitting there like, dang, okay, for sure. Like, this is irritating. This is frustrating. This is energy consuming. Shoot, tear gonna fall maybe, but still like, this is still what I chose to do. And even in those little aspects and those little moments, again, there's always that reminder in the foundation of why I made the decision that brings me out of it to make me understand that this may be a part of the plan. I don't know. The only thing I can do presently is commit to get myself up, dust off my clothes, wipe my face, have a little solitude to where I can re-energize and step back out and try again. You know what I'm saying? So, again, I wanted to talk through this because these are the different stages of risk that I've seen play out. The only thing that has that final level to it, or that encapsulating feeling of not necessarily an accomplishment, but an answer to those different phases of up and down levels, is when you have that moment that the risk actualizes itself in either recognition in a positive or negative light. And that could be the instance that either makes you feel like, I did that for something. Like there was a reason I had to go through that, and I'm glad I did, and I'm glad I made that decision. Or it could be a feeling where someone is like, well, damn, I didn't want to be in this. I didn't want to be in this. But at the same time, because I'm in it now and I'm walking through it, I have a decision to make on if I'm going to press through or I'm going to regress and stop here and make a pivot to something else. And again, that's okay too. I know y'all hear my phone in the back. I can't really go grab it, so just know that I'm gonna work on the audio, okay? But for real though, seriously, you have to understand what, and honestly, even for myself, I don't even know when that moment will be where it all clicks for me, where it's like, okay, this had to happen because it kickstarted the opportunity for this door to open in the long run or what have you. So just letting you know. So with that being said, there's other points and aspects that I wanted to speak to, but at the end of the day, I have to go. I could really sit here on this couch all day and talk to you, but we'll have to continue this conversation some other time. But I've been Done Let the Connect. I'll see y'all in the next episode. Peace.